Hello, everyone, and welcome to Twillow Talk. And I am Tana Scoggin from the Twillow Lifestyle Community, Twillow Lifestyle Academy, and I am joined today by our beautiful co-host, Jennifer Tchaikovsky, and our special guest, all the way from Scotland, Leslie Marsh. So I am an energy healer, channel, Celtic Shamanic High Priestess, Crystal Master. I do stuff. And Jen, do you want to say what you do as well, please?
Sure. You guys know I'm a registered psychotherapist, certified Canadian counselor, intuitive life coach, do the energy stuff as well. And yeah, let's move on. I want to hear about Leslie.
Tell us about you, Leslie.
Well, I got a lot of stuff too.
Awesome.
So, Shamanic practitioner, storyteller, teacher, workshop facilitator, and at the moment into bridging between the shamanism to the psychology end of it with the culture of nurture within businesses these days too.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome. So we'll say hello to a few people. We're super excited to have you here, Leslie. It's quite an honor. And let's see who we've got on today. So we have Annie. Hello, Annie. Thank you for joining us. And Jackie. Hi, Jackie. Nice to have you. And we have Fogo Pogo. Hello, hello. And we have one of our past and future guests, of course, Gerald. Hello, hello. And we have Jessica Lynn on. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. We have a Facebook user saying hello. I don't have my Facebook up, so if you could please let us know who you are. You are likely in our community. Looks like it might be Angela, actually. So
She's trying to
welcome.
come in incognito.
She's in through the community page, the group, and so it shows up as Facebook user. So it's wonderful to have you all here. We have Jessica Lynn. I don't know if we said hello, but hello. So it's awesome to have you all here. Thank you for joining us. And so we usually come on and we talk a little bit to our guest. And what are you up to these days, Leslie? What's coming up for you in terms of what you're working on and what the world events are telling you and all of that stuff?
One of my former clients, then student, has begun to collaborate with me on some different workshops that she's actually going on and doing for herself, and she's invited me along to help out. And so I'm looking forward to that. It's a fresh new way of seeing it through someone else's eyes. And I'm also recording stories, fairy tales, particularly in folklore, with a little bit of my twist on them. So Red Riding Hood, Through the Wolf's Eyes, and Three Bears. Actually, Goldilocks is not a child; she's a shape-shifting fox. Which is why she's in the wood on her own in the first place, because nobody in Victorian times seemed to figure out that was a strange thing to be.
True.
There you go. So, I'm writing a little bit. I'm getting myself ready for sewing.
Yes.
Particularly with some of the stuff that we sell, because I make little altar dressings and things like that. So we've got fallen apples and pumpkins and little brooms made of thyme brush. And so my husband is quite thankful I'm not there at the moment, because if I was, everything would be all scattered all over the place, and there'd be paints and oils and varnish and little bits of thyme coming in from the garden and all over the floor. So yeah, it's good that I'm not there at the moment. But yeah, coming around to this end of the season, with Malpas just coming up, and then we have to be a little bit forward thinking. So Halloween, sewing, we're going for it.
Awesome. Lots of fun. So we have another couple of people on. We'll just say hello. We have Gleaned on. hello, Gleaned, and we have Sharon who has posted your website. So thank you for that, Sharon. That is Leslie's website there that
Thank you, Sharon.
we have.
You see a lot of pictures of Nepal in there.
It's right here. There we go. Okay. And we do have a question, actually, which is it's interesting. Gleaned, what is the empath question? She's asking if she can ask an empath question. So we often will answer questions on this show. Not so much, we're not like doing card readings or anything, but if there's a question about your spirituality or you have a question for any of us, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll pop them up on the screen and have a little chat about the question. So in the meantime, Jen, what are our transits like for human design right now?
Yeah, sure. So as of the 9th until the 15th, so we're kind of right in the middle of gate 47. So this is the gate of realizing. In the gene keys, we're looking at the idea of moving from the shadow of oppression to transmutation and transfiguration as the Siddhi, right? And the idea here is the ability to kind of pull the abstract pieces, right, together. And it's this ability to come to this place of the aha moment, right? The epiphany moment. The beautiful thing with this, though, and we talk about this a lot in the show, and I talk about this a lot with clients, is this is the place where we do the shadow work, right? The 47th gate, Richard Rudd talks a lot about this. It's like the magic mirror is how he refers to it, right? And he explains how it's in this place, this oppression place. I think the way he puts it is this idea of like, this is where the vast reservoir of darkness lurks, right? This kind of ancestral inheritance of karmas and all this other stuff that we have to work through, right? This is where it comes through and it allows us a place to process it out. The thing is that, and we've talked about this so many times, is we try to process it here. And this is not where we're meant to process it at all, right? And so we have all of these kind of random patterns. And I mean, Richard gets so much into it where he's talking about, like the genetic memory of it carried in the blood and this idea of like junk DNA, right? And the idea that it's so much so that we have to get into the alchemy of it, right? It's not about figuring it out. It's about transforming it within us, transfiguring it, transmuting it, changing it within us into new energies. And in order to really do that, we have to look inside. We have to be willing to look at what's coming up for us. We have to be willing to look at the shadow, right? And so much fear comes up in that because a lot of times there's fear of the darkness and there's fear of this part of us that, we think is going to take over. But, I love how Carl Rogers talks about the good place, right? And it's not about being this, person who has it all together, who's all good, who doesn't ever have any problems. It's about the person who can recognize the anger and make peace with it. The person who can look at the sadness and say, this is okay. I can work through this. I can handle this. I can sit with this and I can love this and embrace it and comfort it and allow it to have its place and then move from there. Right? Because in doing so, there's nothing in that to fear. We don't have to worry about exploding or doing anything that we're going to regret later because we're allowing it to have its place. Right? Sorry, it's Robbie the cat. I'm just moving.
It's hard to read the screen with a cat in the way, isn't it?
Yeah. And so, oh no, she's crunching on it. She's crunching on a stone, and I don't want her to do that. So the idea here is, if in this time, you find that you're experiencing hopelessness, right? This kind of collapse. And most of the time it's this mental collapse, right? Because we just can't take the oppression of it, the trying to figure it out, right? Or we find that maybe we're more reactive and we're in this kind of like dogmatic place of, no, this is how it has to be, right? Those are signs that maybe we are not allowing the shadow place to come out and to allow it to have its place so that we can work on the alchemical process of transmuting it, right? So notice it, take that step back, take that breath, allow some space so that you can, sit back with and allow it to have it say, right? We talk about emotions being messengers.
Mhm.
Allow it to tell you what it needs to tell you so that you can work on changing that into what's next for you, right? And have this beautiful gift of transmutation,
Awesome.
right? One of the quotes I actually do want to pull up that he said, the very thing that terrifies you the most is your route to a higher evolution,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because it often means that we have to go through the shadow. But the shadow doesn't have to be a scary place.
Yeah. The shadow work is really what helps to clear some of the old stuff so that we can move forward and, raise our vibration and move forward, right? And put ourselves out of, we have to go out of the comfort zone to
Yeah.
sort of make progress to where we're going. And so that's kind of, I think, what that is about, right? So for those of you that haven't worked with shadow work, I think that's how we do it. We go into those darker corners and we take a look at what's in there and we, excavate and alchemize.
I went to the cave with only a candle, not a flashlight.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But it's interesting though. When we put light onto something, we make bigger shadows. And it was one of the things that I was reading yesterday was the best way to deal with shadow is to turn the lights out. And then you're just inside it. And I think a lot of the time it's got to do with when we're afraid of the dark, sometimes it's afraid of being by ourselves in the dark.
Yeah.
And being afraid of ourselves is a darkness itself, it's a shadow work itself. And when we don't want to go in there, we need guides who will help us to go through that and lead us in there. As well, we know, don't we, Tanis, the wolf is the guide, he's the pathfinder, and he's going to take you to the places that you didn't want to go. You have to go at one point, but you didn't really want to go. And when you see wolf coming, you're like, okay, this is going to be interesting. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to have to go that way
Exactly.
now. Yeah.
It's time, is it? All right,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, definitely at the moment, particularly this end of the year, is the time for the genetic memory for the ancestors. It's all stirring around in a big cauldron. It's, bringing things up, and we've got to put all the new ingredients in, all those who have passed this year, particularly, and any expectations that we have or had of those people that perhaps we feel that we didn't get a chance to say anything, and it's going to sit there and mither and waste our lives looking at it and thinking, oh, I wish I'd said, then say it,
Mm-hmm.
particularly on the night, 31st of October, say it.
Yeah.
It's amazing how it can work.
Yeah. Well, the veil is thin at those times, if not non-existent. So they hear us anyways. They do hear us. So don't be afraid to talk to them, guys. Like, put it out there because they can hear you. Yeah. So quick hello to a few people that have joined us. We have Michelle. Hey, Michelle from Astrological Tarot. Thank you for joining us. It's good to see you. And thank you so much for posting all of our stuff, Sharon. We appreciate that. And we have a few people that are work lurking, lurking while they're working. Cool. It's great to have you. So, are we ready to pick a topic? There we go.
Yeah, definitely.
Look at that.
I can hear the cat.
I think we need to put this down.
Enjoying yourself.
There we go.
Perfect.
So maybe you can tell people a little bit about how you work with your clients, Leslie.
In many different ways. It's like anything else, it's made to fit the client, whatever they bring, the energy they bring. And occasionally there's a little bit of confrontational work that gets done. And in Scotland, we're quite good at that, particularly in Glasgow. There's a very kind of energy. So, if they come right up to your face and say, well, this is what's wrong, and I want you to fix it. And we have to sit and say, well, actually, we don't do that because it's not our stuff. It's yours. So what we'll do is we'll make a space where you can deal with your stuff. And we'll teach you how to invite other guides in and resources. And then we'll show you how to go where you need to go. But then it's really up to you. And there's the healings, but I think the storytelling is one of the most powerful things that we have, because we're all telling stories all the time. Every time we open our mouth, when someone says, and how are you today? It's become this glib thing that people say, and they don't really expect to be told. They expect to hear oh, I'm great, thanks, or I'm fine. And then away. But if someone actually says, well, it's been like this and I'm feeling like this and it's just, and this is going on, and I'm so, what? I don't want to know that. Then why ask the question? Because somebody somewhere is going to pick it up. But what they're doing is, when they're telling you that story, is they're telling themselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
When they're saying, and you can see them doing it, and I watch very carefully, particularly in workshop situations, when they're going into trance, when they're going into that space in between, if their shoulders are stooped, if they're getting a little bit, where are they going? Which part, which energy, where is their attention going? Because that, of course, is where the energy is going to flow.
Of course.
So it's a lot about observation and listening to what they're telling, the words they're using, kind of feeding it back to them in a different way, but also telling a story that perhaps fits the bill and allowing them to understand. Telling a person a story when they're uptime trance like we are at the moment, sometimes it just goes, yeah, what do I want to listen to that for? I'd rather go and watch a soap. Yeah, because that's much more entertaining and it's an adult thing.
Yep.
Stories are for kids. Stories are not for kids.
No, stories are for everyone.
Everyone, yeah. And, from great grannies and Methuselahs to wee teeny things that have just been made, they're there. Animals tell each other stories. You can see that if you go into the dog playground part at the park, and you'll see the dogs coming up and telling their stories to each other.
Yep.
Actually, I joke with people when the dogs are out and they're doing their business and peeing everywhere, and I say to people, basically, they're doing their social media, and he's just commenting on a thread.
That's awesome.
And the other part, maybe they're trolling a bit. Depends on how enthusiastic they get. However, but
you hear a lot of purrs, Jen.
Yeah. The categories, because they tell a really good story. They are fantastic.
She's telling her story too.
She really is.
They love it. Psychological warfare. You cannot beat a cat for that. They truly are the past masters at psychological warfare.
Indeed. So we do have a question, ladies. Shall we put that up and see what you think? Okay. So we have a question from Gleaned. I feel like I cry months before someone dies. Is that normal?
Yeah, it's
Well, I
probably
think
normal
yeah.
for the empath. It depends
Yeah.
on what's normal for them.
Yeah, it really depends on the person,
Mm.
you know, because we all have different sensitivities. So, and are you aware that you're crying for that person when you're crying? That would be my other question for you, Gleaned. Because we often will pick up on stuff that's not even ours. And so it could be that you're picking up on things that aren't even yours that are coming up for you, right? We've had quite a week this week with the earthquake over in Morocco. And so there's a lot of sort of heaviness in the energies today and yesterday about all of that. Not until recently when my dog died. Oh, we're so sorry for your loss. So you knew that your dog was going to pass and you cried about it before it happened? Is that what you're bringing forward, Gleaned? Yes, and Fogopogo says yes. We've also had it's 9/11 today as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear about your dog passing. I know, you know, when we lose anyone we love, it's always a really hard time. When it comes to, you know, the empathic connection, you know, I do agree, you know, it's different for each of us, and how it comes through is going to be, you know, unique for each of us. Some of the important things is, you know, recognizing what are we picking up, right? And so if you've noticed that this is a pattern for you, right, at the time that you're picking it up, do you know what you're picking up? Do you know what's, you know, coming through for you? Can you, you know, realize that this is it? Or is it, you know, only once something happens you realize, oh, that's, you know, what I was emotional about at that time? And it's not that one way is better than the other either, right? Sometimes we don't know why we're going through something, and it's only after that we realize, oh, right, that's what the connection was. You know, but the more that we recognize a pattern, I think the more we have an opportunity to connect to that, and the more we have the ability to feel into it, so that when we have that kind of emotion show up for us in the same way again, we can explore that and kind of feel into it and go, okay, this is kind of the same feeling again. And we can allow ourselves to, you know, explore that within, you know, I'm very mind, body, spirit, right? So we want to feel it. How is it feeling within me? Is this the same feeling as I was feeling before? That have that same kind of connection, and then ask spirit, is there anything I need to know about this feeling, about where it's coming from? Is there anything I need to do with it? Do I need to just be intercessory for it? Am I here to just process it right now? Right? Or is there an action I need to take with it?
Yeah.
I think actually with the fact with the dog, even 5 years before, when animals are ill, they know themselves very early on in the process that they're going, and communicating that, particularly with the ability of an empath. Dogs and cats, animals per se, are all empathetic. They are
Yeah.
all empaths because they live in the world of energy, and they live in the world of the biofeedback. And when we have a relationship and that we are pack with our animals, they will show us in different ways. And if we have the eyes and the ears and the feelings that are open enough to understand that, and to, oh, hang on a minute, that's not quite right. Are you not feeling too
Looks like perhaps she.
early?
Oh, there we go. Okay. You froze for a moment.
Ah, So yeah,
So the interesting part about this is that Leslie was actually a veterinary nurse as well. So
Wow.
it's that she did that for
Mm-hmm.
a big part of her career. So it's I always find it amusing when we have all these connections that come through for each show. So while we're waiting for Leslie to come back on, I just want to say a quick hello to Joyful Journey. Hey Jen, how's it going? Thanks for joining us. And so Michelle says, yeah, there's no normal. People may tell you there's a normal way to grieve, but there are a few things as deeply personal as the grieving process. And you can only embark on that journey as you see fit.
Yeah. Very true, Michelle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was, while you were frozen, Leslie, I was letting them know that you were a veterinary nurse as well.
Yeah, I started off as a zookeeper and worked my way down from elephants to dogs, cats, and small furries.
Awesome. Oh, hello, Twisted Sushi. Thanks for joining us. She's just joining us here for stopping by. Good to have you. Awesome. Yes, I mean, grief is definitely a very individual process. You know, people deal with it in very different ways, and there is no right or wrong to that. And just allowing ourselves to process the energy in whatever way we need to. So, you know, good majority, you know, process that energy through tears, but not everybody does. Some people process it in different ways. And so tears is a great one for people because it's very quick in terms of you're quick to cry when that happens, sort of thing. But there's no time, like there's no time limit, no timeline for grief. It can be a day, it can be years, and everybody has their own process with that. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So Michelle is one of the teachers as well for the Twillow Lifestyle Academy, and so this is from her, the Astrological Tarot. Some of us feel sad when someone dies. Some of us feel angry. Some of us feel nothing at all. Also dealt with inhibited grief, which is characterized by suppressed emotions. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes there's a whole plethora of emotions that are all happening all at the same time.
Yeah,
You know, I can't tell you how freeing it was when I realized you could actually, it's okay to feel like all of those emotions all at the same time. Because you think you have to, you know, pigeonhole. I'm sad and only be sad. In my logical mind, I thought I had to only be sad and then only be angry and then only be... I don't know why I thought that, but I did for a while.
It's a wonderful way of multitasking with emotional content. You know, you start to laugh and then you cry, or you start crying and then you go into laughter.
Mm-hmm.
When we think about it, when people die and we go to funerals, the wake part, we start off all sad and saying goodbye, but then we go into remembering, and the spirit of the person almost comes into the room.
Yeah.
And everyone is laughing and joyful and smiling about the things that happened. But then there's always a little bit of a tinge of sadness as well, because that's it. That part of their story has ended.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like a bittersweet, right? We remember those, and we will always have those memories of people.
Yeah. Well, that's it. There's so much that we can feel at the same time. You know, like even what Kaylee was saying, Pogo Pogo, with the, you know, sometimes there's relief when somebody is suffering. There's relief that they're not suffering anymore.
Yeah.
We're sad that we miss them. We laugh at memories. It's, you know, it's okay, and it's okay to feel it all. Right?
It is.
Such a beautiful thing to know that it's all okay. And if we can give ourselves permission to feel all of the feels, then we can get through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When we suppress, it makes it more challenging, I think.
I think that's when we enter the wallow, when we suppress.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, It's okay to go and have a wallow, but don't make it your postcode, or as you guys call it, your zip code.
Yeah.
Hello to Morella. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you. So as per our usual modus operandi, we usually pick a card from this deck here, James Van Prague, for a topic. Shall we see what comes up today, ladies? As a topic. Well, this is appropriate. Adversity. I accept that challenges are the best way to learn.
Oh, yeah.
Adversity. So, our topic. What do you guys think out there?
It's looking at the other side, isn't it? It's the adverse of what you would be doing. So when we look at what would be happening, we see more. Like we were talking the other night there about the reticular activating point. If we go about with blinders on all the time, we are never going to find the adverse unless we are setting ourselves for the adverse. It's very much law of attraction in some ways. And when we get up against adversity, it also shows us how we cope with things. Some people will say, "Oh, you're so brave," but what happens is that you don't actually think about it as being brave. You're just doing it. You're just saying, "I'm going forwards. There's no point in staying stuck where I am or going backwards." Because what we have to do is we have to keep rolling along with it. And if you roll with the punches, they don't quite hit so hard.
Mm-hmm.
But if we don't know that we're being challenged, if we don't have the adversity, how do we know we're not stuck?
It's true. And we have to have that to learn, right? I always call it the grist. We have to have the grist in order for us to learn and evolve. Because if we didn't, if everything was always peach keen and we didn't have the adversity, how would we learn? And our whole reason for being is to learn what it's like to be human. And that includes adversity. It includes what we consider adversity.
Yeah.
So Marilla loves your accent, by the way.
No, thank you.
Awesome.
It's been toned down just a bit.
And Annie says, I have a lot of resistance towards challenges, and most of my lives have been scared of trying. Mm-hmm. So is that what one of your lessons is this time then?
I was just thinking that. I was also just noticing scared. If you were slightly dyslexic, it could be sacred.
This is true. So how can we make scared into sacred for you, Amy? How do you make that transition? Hello, Thomas. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that, adversity is a natural part of being human because we do have to have that, right? Oh, she says, thank you. She hadn't seen it like that.
When you look at adversity, it's a case of if no one ever challenged your opinion or your belief, how would you have any? Because until someone questions, we don't know about our beliefs and values really until someone steps on them. And suddenly we come alive to the idea of, I don't like that. I don't want to know that. Did you do that for? And it's suddenly, but before, it maybe never came up. And the only reason that we actually discover how we can become less adverse to things is to be confronted by them and to understand that we're going to come up against that. But our amygdala in there is going, danger, danger, warning, warning, adversity, coming out at you. Hide. So basically, you don't want to do that because, if you hide all the time, you miss a lot. And some of that adversity is actually going to knock your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, we think about adversity, and it's this, we always go to this kind of like, hostile opposition, right? This idea of like misfortune or hardship, and we have this kind of negative connotation that immediately comes up when we think about it, and yet nothing changes without it.
Mm-hmm.
Ever, right? And if we think about, do we really, and I say this all of the time, and I know we've talked about this before, this idea of like, I know I'm not the same person I was, yesterday, let alone the same person I was, a week ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Thank God I'm not the same person I was, right? And if it wasn't for the adversity that I went through, would I have just continued down that road being who I was?
Yeah.
Right? And so when I look at the adversity in my life, it was the very thing that was necessary to allow me to change course, to steer in these different directions, and to, as Leslie was saying, decide who I want to be and where I want to go. Right? It was enough to be, oh, here's this wall. What do I want to do about it? Right?
Yeah.
Right. But if that never showed up, how many of us, I know myself included, would just putter along doing the same old, and never make a change and never do anything different.
It's slightly ironic, isn't it, that we are so adverse to change when actually we have done nothing but change from the time of our conception onwards. Even as a species, as the universe, the Big Bang was a conception. And then everything started to change. And each day, every millisecond, there was a change and a change and a change until suddenly we came and suddenly we put the brakes on and said, no, we don't want to change anymore. We want to just be what we are now because that makes us happy. But it's like saying to someone, you're going to go onto a desert island, you can take one food with you that you absolutely love, one book, and one piece of music. How long do we think it would take to get really, really fed up of those things and crave something else?
Absolutely. And and depending on your human design, it might be faster than some others. I get bored easily.
Yeah. My husband always gets worried when I get bored.
Yes, because then we go and make change. We make change happen so that we don't get bored.
Yeah.
We had some nice comments here about community as well in terms of adversity. Makes it not so scary. And as soon as you have a group come together, it becomes sacred. And isn't that an effective way for us to deal with adversity, is as a group, as a team? Annie says, yes, it's wonderful. Morella, community is so helpful. Absolutely. And a big hello to Teresa. Hello, thank you for joining us. Absolutely. Community does help, right? We spread because really we are very community-based beings. We want to be in community. We want to be, it helps somehow if we have people that are feeling the same way or that are experiencing the same things. I mean, that's where support groups and stuff have their strength, is in the community of it all.
Yeah.
Depending on how we are, whether we're pack or we're herd animals. The adversity of the pack animal against the herd animal is what guides the herd animal to wherever it's going. And sometimes that chaos is a case of it's scary, we don't really like it, but we're going to end up
She froze.
somewhere. We're freezing.
Yes.
Oh, hang on a minute. I'm in Scotland. Of course I'm freezing.
Yeah. It's always cold there, isn't it?
Oh, it's so cold sometimes. And wet too. Very, very
Yeah.
wet. We get washed a lot. We're all green all the time because we get washed a lot.
Absolutely.
That's it though, right? Like when we talk about community and all of that, and this idea of adversity, and you think about, the ability of what community can do when faced with adversity, right? And how we've had, revolutions that have come from adversity, right? And great change. And we've had movements and we've had all kinds of things that have come when enough people together looked at an adversity and said, okay, this isn't working. We need to make a change, right? And even having, a spiritual movement of people together who said, okay, life is not, everything that, the 3D makes it out to be, and we come
Exactly.
together and we have community, and together we go, all right,
So how do we choose to perceive our reality?
yeah. And together we look at it and go, okay, we're gonna move together differently. And sometimes we are the herd and we need that movement from the outside. And sometimes we're the pack and we're pushing each other around, or we're pushing others around. And we're a little bit of all of it. And I think that that's a pretty incredible thing.
I'm thinking about starlings at the moment. You get that, and I know there's a word for it, but I can't remember the word, where they're as a flock, as one, all these teeny tiny guys are all together, and suddenly they're like this, and then they're like this, and herring do it as
Yes.
well. Little fish do it as well in the sea. So it's almost like as above, so below. It
Absolutely.
doesn't matter which area you're in, something is doing something in that area that happens elsewhere. That we don't normally know about it, so it doesn't really matter. But they are reacting and responding to good conditions and adverse conditions in their area. I mean, when you see the bait balls that go on and the sharks coming in, now that's adversity for you.
Yes.
Let's all clump together and we'll be safe. And then you get the odd tiddler and somebody's going, oh, hello, gotcha.
Yep.
So I think that safety in numbers is there also. But there must be one mind for that to be able to happen. Some don't catch on quite as quickly, so the stragglers kind of get lost. But with the starlings, they are so fast and so beautiful when they do that.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah. What a beautiful comment. We're all family here. Absolutely. We have Jacqueline, Michelle, Annie. Absolutely. Hello, Estella. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, nature has a beautiful way of dealing with it in their own ways, right? Like the birds adjusting. In many ways, they're very flexible.
I think we need to learn a lot more from that again. We used to be very close with it. We used to be so connected. And then suddenly we decided that central heating was much better. That the god of central heating.
Well, you live in Scotland. It's probably helpful. The central heating piece. Oh, and she froze.
Doesn't work.
Oh, we missed that. Sorry.
Oh,
Yep, nope.
bye.
There
No.
we go. There we go.
No.
Now you're back.
Okay. This is the adversity for me. Wi-Fi.
Mhm.
Wi-Fi connection.
Yep, that's
I'm
where we
not
have
at
to be
home.
that.
Gotta
We
love
have to be that
technology.
flexible. Flexible.
Mm.
Flow.
Mhm.
Hmm. Awesome. So we have 15 minutes. What do you guys want to talk about in terms of adversity? What are your experiences with that? How do you guys deal with that? Do you have any sort of tips or techniques that you guys work with to help our clients with that? And what about our audience? How do you deal with adversity?
Yeah, murmuring.
Mm.
It's got a lot to do with your state of mind.
Mhm.
Yes, a murmuration. Yeah. There's a lot to do with your state of mind. The mindset that we have, and understanding that, as Mr. Milton Erickson said, we are always more than we think we are. And I think if we can remember that we are built to survive, and not just to survive, but to thrive even in the harshest of situations,
Mhm.
then we can learn to trust ourselves to get through it.
Yeah.
And how much of it is our, because you talk about mindset. I mean, I think that sometimes it's our mindset and how much adversity we've gone through, how change skilled we are, how skilled we are with change or with the adversity. And is adversity just a mindset about change?
I'm not entirely sure that it's just about the mindset for one actual thing. There's an overall situation where we have the energy. I mean, spiritually, our souls are sitting there and they have a lot to say if we listen. Our universal minds has got it all planned. It's all up there. It's whether or not our conscious mind will let that drive the bus, whether the conscious mind will get out of the driving seat. And all the potty training that we had when we were children. You can't do that. You'll hurt. Don't fall. Don't do that. Oh, that's very naughty. You can't do that. You know.
Yes.
And this is the stuff where we have to actually say, why? Why can I not do that? What if I did that? And what if I do skin my knees? Or what if the dog bites me? What if this happens? What's the other? I'll never do it again, you
Mhm.
know? Or maybe I'll think to myself, that was just one bad dog. They're not always going to be like that. We just lump things in together sometimes. This idea that the generalization, because we can't tend to cope with making differentiation between things. It's like, oh, this one belongs to that team, this one belongs to that team, and neither the twain shall meet. And yet it's the individuals within them, like the individual starlings, it's they know the moves and they choose to make the move the way that it's done. And that's the mindset of choice. And I think that that's what we have to remember. Even although we have been potty trained, it doesn't mean that we're always on a potty. We have evolved as we get older to do it differently, but still achieve the same results.
Indeed.
We get rid of stuff we don't need.
Yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely. It's that reprogramming, relearning how to deal with things, right? As we go through.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Morella says, when I get into my rabbit hole, which is what she calls it, I try to call a friend or keep busy, get out in the backyard, or catch alive, be with the spiritual family.
Definitely. Yeah. Very much like Leslie, I talk often with clients about reprogramming, right? The mind has its patterns and it's not always programmed to serve us. And so we have to notice them and, work on figuring out what does serve and what we can let go of. And the beautiful thing with that is, we can also learn that I think sometimes when we get stuck in something, especially adversity, we feel like it's forever, right? When we feel like when something is not going well or whatever it comes up for us, we feel like this is it. This is all there is. And we have to remember that, everything in this life is temporal. Everything ebbs, everything flows, right? And so two quotes actually from Rumi came to mind for me. And the one is about hardship, which, like adversity, right, is this idea of hardship may dishearten at first, but every hardship passes away. All despair is followed by hope, and all darkness is followed by sunshine, right? Nothing that we're dealing with is forever. The feelings, they stay with us as long as we hold on to them, right? But if we allow them to flow, just like the clouds in the sky, they're ever changing. So if we can allow ourselves to just be in flow with what is going on around us, then we're okay. We can feel the feels, and then the feels can go, and we can feel the next set of feels. And they may come back, and that's okay. And if things are really, really bad, or if things are feeling like there's just nothing left, I'm just feeling so overwhelmed with it, this is where the other quote comes in. If everything around you seems dark, look again. You may be the light. Right?
Yeah, that's
and this is where we have to go in. Mm-hmm. Right? When everything else around us seems like that's it, I just can't anymore. It's too much. We got to go inside and go, okay, this is where I have to connect. I have to go right to source. I have to go right to that higher self. I have to go into me and go, my light has to be enough. Right here, right now, how do I connect with that to get me through to the next step? And if I can do that, I can find the strength to get through this, right? And that might tell you, go connect with community. That might tell you, sit in the darkness and stay here for a little while, right? That's going to be different for each of us, and it's going to be different with every situation. But we allow ourselves to be in the moment, and in that moment, if we can truly sit in it, we can figure out what to do. And we know that we're going to be able to get through it.
For the most part, all seeds begin in the dark. They have to be in the dark and go deep, deep down into the darkest of dark to start to germinate, to be nourished by the dark, and then to seek the sun, because the light warms the earth and makes the germination actually start to rise. And this also happens with our psyches, with our ways of being. When we're down, when we're really in the dumps, and it's so hard to lift our heads, sometimes the best thing to do is to dive deeper inside. Because when we do that, we suddenly, and someone uses the rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. Every rabbit hole is part of a warren. So for every entrance, there is an exit. And there's always a road out with every warren. You might come out in a different place every time you go in, but you will come out of the other end because it's all cycles. Mm-hmm. Everything we do is in a spiral of cycles. Yeah. So we're, again, like, kind of one way of feeling all the time. Mm-hmm. Did I freeze again?
You did. Yeah. We hang on your words, Leslie.
I'm hearing what you have to say. It's just in that moment you go, oh no.
Apparently, we're an anti-anxiety. Kaylee turns on Twillow Talk just to listen.
Nice. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Aw.
Marilla says, powerful words, ladies.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
I love
Mm-hmm.
it. I love Leslie's example of the plant
Yeah.
and the seed starting in the darkness. And it's beautiful. I don't know if any of you are gardeners. My partner, bless his heart, is like, he loves plants and to grow from seed. And one of the beautiful things that I've come to learn is that most all seeds, when they come out, they don't, it's not the tip of the plant that pushes its way out. They almost always come out bent, and then they straighten up, which is beautiful too, because they come out protected, right? That most vulnerable part that is going to then blossom is protected when they come out, right? And then they straighten and then they grow and open. So again, it's, to what Leslie was saying, you froze again on us.
Jen was complimenting your
I was
example of the
complimenting
plant and then elaborating.
how much I loved it.
I can hear you. It's just,
Oh no.
I'm used to it now.
And now we have a delay.
Oh, I'm on satellite delay now. Okay. They always said I was slow. Here we call it being at the coo's tail. That's me, Leslie, always at the coo's tail. That's another story, though.
Mm. So we have another user that's in and saying hello. We have hello, beautiful. This is Monica. We have Max. Ola, thank you for joining us. And we have Liz joining us from Cozumel. Hello, hello. Yeah, awesome. We have the best chatters.
Most definitely.
Well, this is coming to the end of our hour.
Mhm.
So, what shall we finish off with? Final thoughts about adversity or grief? That's the other topic we talked about today. They both sort of flow into each other. Leslie?
I think one of the things about adversity is how adverse we are with ourselves, and we're taught to be. Now, the thing with the seed also, when you think of a dandelion seed, it spends a lot of time growing down the way and rooting itself deep inside. And this is like all those being nurtured by all those, you're so bad, you're no use, you can't do this, what's the point in you? And these are all the things that these roots are being fed. And then when the flower comes up, what happens is it becomes this little ball of these seeds that we can then out to everyone else. The same litany. You're no good. You can't do that. How dare you think that you are this? How dare you think you can be this? And I think that the other thing that we need to remember about it is adversely, when we look at dandelions, the roots make great coffee and the heads make great marmalade and they're good for bees.
This is a good thing.
So everything has a good side. There's always some useful part, even to a weed.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Just as all situations
Mm.
have all sides. Jen, final thoughts?
Well, adversity, grief, all of these things. I think that, as we said through the show, and as Leslie was saying too, it's really about our perception of them more than anything else that determines our level of suffering with them. So if we can look at our perception of what's happening, and we can allow ourselves to take that step back, right? I loved how Leslie was talking earlier about the stories that we tell.
Mm.
If we can notice the stories that we're telling ourselves, and also understand that every time we tell a story, whether it's a story about our experience or a story about what we think about ourselves, it's like we're casting a spell.
Yeah.
Right? In that moment, we are putting that energy out there. And if we are telling a story about something that is negative, if there's negative self-talk in there, if we're talking about not being able to manage, not being able to get over, not being able to deal, that's the energy that we're putting into that story, and that's the energy we're putting into ourselves, and the energy that we're putting into the universe. Is that really what we want to be doing? Right? So notice our perceptions of things. Notice the way that we're telling our stories. Are they serving us? Is that really what we want to be putting out there? Is there another way that we could be telling these stories? Can we be empowering ourselves? Can we recognize the adversity and still empower ourselves with our story? Can we recognize the grief and honor it, but still empower ourselves to move through it?
Beautifully said. And we need to make sure that we are honoring it as well and acknowledging it, but in a way that can move us forward. So I thank you all for joining us today for this awesome show. We were so thrilled to have you today, Leslie. Thank you so much for joining us. It was such an honor to have you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're so pleased. So we will bid you all farewell. We hope that you have a wonderful week. Please join Michelle and I on Wednesday, 7 Eastern, for our show. And we have open mic on Friday at 7 with Ramsey Cheedy and I. And what have you got going on this week? Do you have any podcasts or anything happening for you, Leslie? She may have. Oh, there we are. Check out the conversation with therapists on yours. That's one that I'm often on. That's one of Leslie's. Anything else that you'd like to let people know about, Leslie?
Basically, when you're freezing, just wait a while. You'll warm up again.
There we go. Technical issues.
Basically, just be kind to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're giving yourself a hard time and you catch yourself saying, well, that was a stupid thing to do, then, was it? Or was
Maybe
it just
not.
something that you don't want to do again?
Did we learn?
Yeah.
Awesome. Have an awesome week, everyone. And we wish you a wonderful evening wherever you are. And we hope to see you next week. Sending you lots of love, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.